We all know Hermione Granger as the ultimate academic icon, the girl who always had her hands up in class, knew every answer with ease, and could recite spells like she wrote the textbook herself. The whole, it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa. I honestly really wanted to be her when I was growing up. But what if I told you that Hermione's famous study method, the reading book after book after book, actually wasn't the reason that she is so good at school? It's a common misconception that could cost you hours of inefficient studying, which could be much better spent doing something fun and sporty. In this video, I'm breaking down how Hermione actually studied to get her amazing marks. Hi, I'm Skay, let's dive in. First, we take a look at what people perceive Hermione's approach to be. She was constantly reading, she devoured textbooks cover to cover, and that usually ahead of the assigned schedule. And she often reread material multiple times. She relied heavily on sheer volume, knowing as many facts as possible from as many books as possible. Now, to be clear, reading is important. I mean, you have to learn information somehow, especially if your teacher sucks at explaining stuff. But reading alone, especially passive reading, is one of the least effective ways to lock information into your long-term memory. Not only that, it can be a dangerous trap. Firstly, because it feels productive to do your readings, and then also because it gives you the illusion of confidence and competence. When we reread, things look familiar, so we feel like we know them. But when we are actually tested, when we have to produce the information ourselves, it often slips away. You probably have experienced this before. You read something, maybe a text about the cells in biology, and you understand everything well, you feel good about yourself, but then you're asked something specific, like the name of the part of the cell that synthesizes proteins, and you just don't know. I know I've had this happen to me before, and the part is called the ribosomes. By the way, if you couldn't remember, I had to look that up. But anyway, only relying on reading and other passive methods like rewriting your notes would have made Hermione feel very prepared, but it actually would have left her vulnerable to gaps in true recall, especially under pressure, like in an exam. This is because recognition is not recall. When you reread, your brain says, "Oh, I recognize the sentence," but that doesn't mean you can explain it without the book open. Think about it like this. Recognition is like seeing someone's face at school and thinking, "Oh, I know them." And recall is being able to actually say their full name, their hobbies, your last conversation, without any hints. Passive reading builds surface familiarity, but school exams and also real-world problem solving demand active retrieval, so pulling facts and concepts out of thin air. So what can we do instead of reading a bunch and rewriting our notes in a pretty way? Let's look at what the study icon Hermione probably did most of the time. Instead of spending hours with Hogwarts, a history open in front of her, she would probably have, first, closed the book and summarized. So after reading a section, she would close the book and try to explain what she learned in her own words, maybe to a friend like Ron. Having to simplify complex material makes you think about it more deeply, and it's also a test to see if you actually understood it well. It's the whole, if you can't explain it to a 9-year-old, you didn't understand it yourself thing. And then also, if she struggled with this, she'd know exactly what to review in her next session. And then second, practice question drills. She could create practice questions from her textbooks, or better yet, quiz herself using the questions from the end of each chapter that many authors kindly put there. It's a classic, I know, but it's also very, very effective. I personally do not like doing it because it hits the, I don't actually know it but that's how you learn so effectively and efficiently. Flashcards can actually serve the same purpose here, but make sure that you don't make them too lengthy. So people tend to fall into the trap where they write whole explanatory paragraphs on the back, and then each time you review one, you sit there reading again for 9 minutes. So try to keep them short, otherwise they can lose their efficiency as well. And then finally, something called blurting sessions. So each night before bed, instead of last minute rereading, Hermione could write down everything she remembered about that day's learning without prompts or questions, just her memory. And then she would go back to her book and check what she missed. It's somewhat similar to the first one where you verbally explain it. This way you write it down. Then or the next day, she'd know exactly what she needs to still be studying and already knows what sticks well in her mind. That's another thing that can cost you time, is going over things that are actually already in your long-term memory, and you just repeat them, because it feels good to be able to answer something you know, right? You have a practice question and you know the answer and you're like, oh, you get the feeling of competence again. But studying, you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the things you do not know, and that feels uncomfortable. But by focusing on the output rather than just the input, Hermione and then you can master all the knowledge and become the best at Hogwarts or at your school. You can do that as well, and even faster and more efficiently. So what's the lesson here for you and not just for Hermione? Let's wrap this up once more. First, reading alone is not enough. It's just the beginning. And learning happens when you retrieve, not when you reread. The more active form of studying can feel more uncomfortable and difficult, but it's worth it, I promise you. And little tip, make studying active, messy, and personal. Your notes should look organized, but also more like a sort of battlefield, more so than a perfect Instagram spread. It's okay if you make annotations or use different colors or add something here and there or cross something out. It's an active form. It shouldn't be like a perfect image. I'm sorry, but the ones you see online, probably they're more better suited for rereading than actually active studying. So if you want Hermione level academic success without the all-nighters and mental burnout, build active recall into your daily study habits and start studying early. Then treat every study session like practice for real life. No open books, no hints, just you, your brain, and the challenge of pulling the knowledge out by yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you read, it's about how much you can remember, use, and explain in the exams, but then also in real life. So study like the smarter version of Hermione and watch yourself become unstoppable. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. First, do you like Hermione or Rory Gilmore more? And which active recall methods are you excited to try first? See you next time. Good luck with your next exam. Bye-bye.